Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to day 3 of the StarCraft II World Championship Series Premier League. We are in the 3rd season and already kicked off the round of 32 earlier this week. Kicking off day 3, I am joined by Nathanius and In Control to see who else is going to move into the round of 16. We've already had 4 players, but we'll have plenty more time to talk about that. For now, we want to remind you where we are right now. Exactly what does this all lead to for the Premier League here at WCS. So we kick off with the round of 32. Going through 8 groups. Half of it will be broadcasted from here right now in the studio in Burbank, California, and then the others in Cologne, Germany. So we will wrap up here in Burbank tomorrow with Group D. That all leads to the round of 16. 2 players from each group advance to a round of 16 group stage, and then from there, 2 players from each group move on to the bracket stage, the round of 8. That all happening in Poland later in September. All leads to one winner who can be called the champion of Season 3 and take that $30,000 and 2,000 WCS points. It's a lot to fight for here in WCS.
Life-changing money. You can buy a Mazda Miata with that amount of money. You can put a down payment on a very small house, which is awesome.
It's a lot. It's a lot to fight for sure. You could also save it. I think that would also be a wise choice. But no matter what you want to choose as a player, to fight for that much in one single tournament, that's a lot. And even if you don't get there, right, the other places, obviously we always talk about first place, but the fact is you still get, the other parts of the prize pool. You get WCS points. You get a little reputation to stack up for your StarCraft II career.
It's a ladder in many ways. Ladder of money, WCS points, and prestige.
Yeah. Being a part of that system has been so crucial for the players this year, being able to go through and stay in Challenger as long as you make it to the round of 32 for Premier. Having that stability for the players that are competing all year long has just been very nice for them this year.
Yeah, we were talking to players and saying, what is WCS for you? And they're always, this is what brought me to continuously be able to play and really follow what I wanted to be able to be on stage for StarCraft II. It's really a beautiful thing. We're already in the 3rd season here in 2015. Of course, a couple years in now for WCS has been beautiful. But let's look at where players are after they followed the system. Where do they stand right now, leading, of course, all the way to the global finals at BlizzCon later this year? As you can see at the very top, it's Hero and rank 16 so far. SOS, it's just the top 16 players that make it. And for the players that we're going to see this weekend, Hydra and Polt already now in the top 10, and Jaedong is going to be next up. He's playing today, and this is a huge season for him.
Well, absolutely. If you look at that, number 16 up there, SOS, 2,400 points. Of course, that should change come November. But Jaedong at 1,325, he doesn't necessarily need to win this, but he needs to find a way to get 1,075 plus points to be in that top 16. And really, just being 16, by the way, a scary, precarious place to be.
Yeah.
Like we saw what that's happened. We've had a tiebreaker match with Naniwa at actual BlizzCon. We've had so much fluctuation there before, and I know that foreigners are flirting at that bubble situation as well. So for Jaedong today in Group C, he needs to make it out, and he needs to show some flashy stuff because it's not just making it out that's going to do it for him. He needs to get deep, like top 3 or 4.
Yeah, let's continue talking about that as we take a look at the groups. Nathanius, we're talking about Jaedong, how he needs to do it. It's not necessarily going to be the easiest of groups, though, of course, and also we've already seen Group A and B a couple upsets.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting week of results to follow, to say the least. We talked about Petraeus coming back off in Group A from doing a lot of studying, and he said he was still practicing, but we were still a little surprised to see him go through. And then yesterday, Elfie, I guess, is the big story as far as he wasn't even supposed to be in the group until Thermal got sick.
He literally went 0-3 in the match to qualify for this, and from going 0-3 is now in the round of 16.
Yeah, but hey, he played well, and he beat Kelliser. We saw just how defeated he was. Both for the result and also just the fact that Kelliser believed that he was set to go on as second place in that group after Hydra. Of course, we talked about this yesterday, Hydra being the huge favorite in the whole season, not just that group. But what a crushing defeat for Kelliser. But at the same time, Elfie now kind of living the dream story here in Season 3. He's like, all right, already in the round of 16, we'll see how far I can go. It's time to find out if we're going to see that for any of our players. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at Group C of the round of 32. And here we go. The first matches will be ShoWTimE versus Sen, and then Jaedong versus Hero Marine. And just overall looking at these 4 players, of course, the big name that most people may know is Jaedong. But aside from that, what else are we looking at here? Of course, Sen has a long history, too. We can't count him out.
This is awesome. Sen was a top 3, maybe top 5 if you're being especially critical, non-Korean Brood War player. And a lot of people talk about how hard that game was and how you were stacked up against some of the absolute best. Sen was one of those guys who could go to a WCG event and come out as a threat to some of those big Koreans. ShoWTimE, a young German player, one of the absolute tops. He's kind of, results-wise, cooled off a little bit. There was a while there where everyone's like, ShoWTimE, man, one of the absolute best European Protosses. I would still say he's up there, but this is the WCS Season 3 where it's like, okay, well, you got to show us again because it's kind of cooled off a little bit. And, of course, HeroMarine, another very young German player. Of course, as a Terran player, his results have also kind of cooled off. But against Jaedong, who some people are seeing as a lot more kind of volatile and not quite the god-tier player that he was a while ago, maybe this could be that upset in this group. Because so far we've been 2 for 2 for upsets in the 2 groups.
Yeah, we have. I mean, there's definitely plenty of chances here in Group C. Now, let's talk about the first game coming up a little bit more. And the thing is, fill us in. I mean, Sen and Jaedong, if you've been following since Brood War days, you're going to have heard their name. ShoWTimE, though, and of course, HeroMarine later. What are we looking at here? Overall, lots of new faces in Europe in general this year.
Yeah, we've been talking so much throughout the course of this year about all the developments that have happened in European StarCraft especially, and as much as we've talked about, the French scene blowing up and all them, ShoWTimE's been a really big threat, and he, just in his records so far this year, have been really shaping up to show that.
Yeah, and now Sen going up against Sen again. I mean, he has played for a long time, and that shows just not only in his age, but also he's had quite the record throughout his career. But here he is. Now, the big question is he still on that point, though, right? I would say that this group, a little bit interesting in some senses, because Jaedong and Sen both, it's like a big question. Are they still playing at the same level? Do they show up to play like they used to in their prime this season? Because it's very easily possible that they don't.
That's what's kind of fun about WCS is, like, the Chinese scene is fairly insular. We don't see a lot of them except for in WCS, and Sen kind of up and down. He's either like an absolute masterful player, he's on the lower end. Here we see ShoWTimE, of course, as well, and you can see in the results as well, he's been in a few WCS Premier seasons, but results-wise, kind of 50-50. It is heating up a little bit at 7-3, of course, in 2015, much better. But keep your eye on this guy. He comes from a pedigree of very strong PvZ over in Europe, and they are also a quite good PvP. Of course, I won't serve him here because it's a mismatch of races, but this is going to be a great first match to start things off.
Yeah, and we're kicking it off with Iron Fortress and Coda and Bridgehead being left as the last
More Bridgehead
map.
these days, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, we just did Gfinity, and I've been watching all the events. Bridgehead's like the forgotten child. It's like, get out of here. We don't want to play on you. But so far in WCS, in all 3 groups, we've seen a fair share of Bridgehead.
Yeah, it is interesting how the maps have been working out. Of course, Coda is kind of always sneaking its way in there because most people are okay with playing that map. We're kicking off with Iron Fortress. Are we expecting to see anything interesting here in terms of this match? What do you think, Nathanius?
Well, when you talk about Protoss versus Zerg in general, there's the obvious that their base is going to be a little further out. A lot of people mentioned that Zerg logo in the center of the map. It's a map that Zerg players do enjoy bias. Quite a bit. Yeah, well, hey, take the easy shots where I can.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll have to find out. Again, the big question here is, I think in some ways, you can take 2 angles on it. Either you focus on Sen and say, all right, well, if he plays his very best, then he should be able to get out of this group. Same with Jaedong. At the same time, like you mentioned earlier, both of you guys, there have been really talent rising in Europe. Of course, the big names have been the French players coming through. I mean, we have Little Bell making it to the very end last year as a finalist, or last season rather, as a finalist. But here, the German players, can they prove themselves here in Group C and make a couple upsets and tell them, you know what? Cooled off a little bit throughout the year, but here we're on Season 3. We're still going to go out with a bang in 2015. Well, time to kick off the first game of Group C, and it's going to be Huck and Roddy taking us into the game.
All right, 2 worlds collide as the Taiwanese Zerg will go up against our German Protoss, who is looking for redemption. He had an amazing run in Season 1, Chris. Surprised friends and enemies with his semi-finals appearance. And then, Season 2, it all came crumbling down.
Yeah, and ShoWTimE's been touted, one of those guys that are coming up, one of those really strong European Protosses, but he's kind of fallen off, and we'll see if he can redeem himself indeed.
Yep, he has to go for it. We're loading into Iron Fortress, and we're looking at the main base of our Taiwanese Zerg himself. It is, of course, Sen, spawning in the right bottom side. Sen has made it into Premier League 7 times, and he's only made it to the round of 16 once.
Wow, surprising.
I know, shocking. On the left bottom side of Iron Fortress, we're looking at the main base of the German Protoss himself. He's an EPS champion. It is ShoWTimE. And of course, ShoWTimE had that great run in Season 1. He's looking for something similar. It all went wrong in Challenger of Season 2 when he went up against the Polish Zerg, Elaser. And the ShoWTimE we saw in that series was nowhere near the ShoWTimE we saw in Season 1. Season 1 he had a little bit of everything. He had flair, consistency, cool builds. In that Challenger series, it was just a bunch of uninspiring cannon rushes. It has to be better than that today, Chris.
Yeah, it was a very surprising result to lose to a laser. At the same time, that Season 1 performance, he didn't really play that many hard people. He played a lot of foreigners getting to that top round of 8 performance. What was it, round of 4 almost, I think?
No, yeah, he made it to the semifinals.
Yeah, which was surprising, and that's where, you know, everybody started saying, hey, this is a guy you got to watch out for, but at the same time, you play only foreigners. Is it that big of an accomplishment?
It always is, though, because you're playing as foreigners that are in shape as well. So it's definitely not an achievement that I think we should underline or well, we should underline it in capital letters, saying that was great. But
Italics, bold.
Exactly. Italics bold. We shouldn't undersell it. It was a great run. I do agree with you. It's not like he 3-0'd Bold and 2-0'd Hydra or something to make it to the semis, but he still had a very great run. And he was also going into Season 1 already with a lot of hype. It wasn't out of nowhere. It was already people saying, hey, watch out for ShoWTimE. He's really good, one of the best Protosses. And then he shows up, he delivers. Kind of how Lilbo delivered in Season 2. So I do think that was a pretty damn impressive achievement and result.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm going to play devil's advocate, of course. I'm going to hate on the foreigners.
Are you going to be TLO this entire broadcast?
No, I will not.
Okay.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
Cool openings over here as Sen is going for 2 hatcheries with a spawning pool, of course, but no extractors yet. ShoWTimE on the other end, very similar to what we saw Elfie do yesterday. Just a gateway expand with a nexus on the low ground. Where do you think ShoWTimE should take this? With horizontal spawning positions as we have right now, what is the ideal approach for him?
I mean, without seeing the gas, there's always the possibility of some kind of 3 or 4 gate pressure with Zealots. That's definitely a build I obviously favor.
I'm with you, Chris.
Yeah,
don't worry,
you're with me. At the same time, I don't really know what ShoWTimE's favoring lately. We haven't seen him too much, of course, because he did drop out that Season 2. He hasn't really had that many deep runs. We saw him at Home Story Cup and a few other local tournaments. All in all, he's been kind of hidden away. And Sen, it's what kind of player do we see here? Sometimes Sen shows up and he seems amazing. He can be like a top player outside of Korea, and then sometimes he shows up and it's like, oh, he must have not been practicing.
Especially that Season 2 performance by Sen, where he lost in almost like record fashion. It was 0-2-0-2 in 7 and 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Or, that was Season 1, right, where he played against 4GG in just 2 very, very sad games, where it was like, here are 4 Hellbats, and would you please leave? We do see 3 gateways going down, 2 gateways on the low ground, 1 on the high, 1 in his main base. And that's not too surprising, because he was also hiding that probe on the north side of the map. You like it, Chris, I like it as well. You probably know ShoWTimE maybe a tiny bit better than I do. You probably think he's going for Zealots over here, right?
Yeah, and it's very unusual just because he built 2 Zealots back at home. It's an unusual thing to do that, especially when you probe scout, you know where your opponent is on a 4-player map. You're building these 2 Zealots so early, and honestly, thus far, what have they accomplished? They've just been sitting at home. So I definitely think there's going to be some kind of aggression here.
I mean, Sen should kind of expect this, though. This is one of the most common scenarios whenever you open up without an extractor for a while. He's mining a little bit of gas. He could fire up Zergling speed now. He could also throw down a Roach Warren, so he can have a couple of defensive Roaches, but it's going to be slow Zerglings for now. And I already think that Sen is in a tiny bit of trouble. He really has to put his queens in a good position, maybe throw up a Spinecrawler somewhere near his third base. Otherwise, he's going to have a lot of trouble dealing with all these Zealots and the Mothership Core.
Yeah, he's going to have a lot of trouble indeed. He just doesn't have the creep spread to get to this third base. This map hurting him, and he just doesn't have... Those Zerglings will never match up against the Zealots at this point.
Especially not in a choke point area like that between the hatchery and that potential extractor, where you could start mining gas from.
He almost has as many Zealots as he has Zerglings. You can see the surface area is just horrible. He just doesn't have enough. These 2 queens going to help a little bit, but at the same time...
Okay, that's a lot of Zerglings now, though, Chris, with those queens pushing out a little bit of damage. If these Zerglings can get the wraparound, then I can actually... Oh my, that is a ridiculous amount of Zerglings.
Yeah, Sen doing a great job of recognizing the build and just continuing to push out, but this choke is just so bad. The queens are helping actually a lot. He's going to get a small surround here. Yeah. Only 3 Zealots left. It looks like he actually holds.
Yep, it could have been a lot worse there. On a certain point, there were suddenly so many slow links that it seems like it's going to be enough. As Sen will take out these 2 remaining Zealots. I don't think you want to use Recall. Well, he used Time Warp as well. It was kind of a waste of Time Warp regardless.
I'm never a fan of using Time Warp. It's not like Zerg's ever going to be caught in an engagement. You only have Zealots. It's not like the Zerglings are all of a sudden going to get trapped under that time warp. They just walk away.
I mean, great hold there by Sen. I also thought he was in a little bit of trouble. One bad fight and he would have pretty much lost. And at a certain point, it almost looked like the Zealot count was overwhelming. And then suddenly 25 Zerglings showed up out of nowhere. He does have 4 drones on the extractor. It's killing me.
Yeah, it's killing me too. At the same time, he hasn't done a bad job probing back at home. During the fight, actually, ShoWTimE was up a few workers. Now, of course, those 3 hatcheries, a lot more production. Knowing that he's generally safe, Sen's going to ramp it up a little bit. He's probably going to get to, what, 60, 70 drones most likely before he starts to choose whether he's going to go into more aggression or he's going to tech up or he's even going to take a 4th base.
We all know that Iron Fortress can already be a rather difficult map for Protoss to go up to 3 bases. What I hate about scenarios like this, Chris, and maybe you can agree with me or disagree, is that yes, you forced out a lot of units, but now those units are already out, so it makes it slightly harder for you as a Protoss to go up to 3 bases.
Yeah, you just feel committed after a push like that. You don't really have any tech, and it's more about the Zerg knows you don't have any tech. You have no options, and they feel fairly free just to keep droning up themselves, and that just makes the push, the units they're going to push out later that much stronger.
This Zergling count is not high enough to attack all these sentries, especially because there is a Mothership Core hovering above it and 2 Zealots. Good job by ShoWTimE leaving 1 Zealot at home, making sure he has the wall up. That cannon, I don't think it reaches all the way to the left top side. It will reach to the bottom Zerglings, but not all the way to the top. So he's going to have to go for a couple of defensive weapons. And it seems like ShoWTimE, I mean, he's on 6... how many gates is he?
He has a lot of gateways.
Oh, he actually didn't transfer out, so it's a 7 gate plus 1 as soon as he actually morphs those gates. A good old 7 gate plus 1 with 11 Hydralisk on the way already, Groove Spines being researched. Yeah. I don't think this is hitting fast enough, and I don't think it's going to hit hard enough either.
Yeah, it kind of played against him. It's like ShoWTimE wanted to fake that 3rd base, kind of control vision, but at the same time, the whole Sen the whole time was thinking, I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to get up until a Hydralisk den and then just stop pumping Hydras and deny that 3rd base. So he's already preparing for the defense, kind of, sort of, because he wanted to be aggressive.
Yeah, normally if you're ShoWTimE, you want to see a couple Roaches here, you want to see a couple Zerglings, hope for a good force field. The last
he
thing
could cut him off here, though.
Yeah, he could drop some good forces, but the Zergling count is still very high, and he barely has any Zealots. The Zealots are behind the Stalkers, so these Stalkers are eating way too much damage, and I think this is an absolute disaster for ShoWTimE. He's going to drop a Time Warp as well, but I just don't see this Protoss army ever prevailing against these Hydras, especially not on creep. The Mothership Core goes down as well.
He's just losing so much. He used a Time Warp, overlapped that with Force Field. He's lost so many sentries, and at this point, he's retreating, but what do you have to retreat home to? There's no 3rd Nexus, there's no tech. He's very all in here. He has a chance. These Hydralisks are fighting off creep, but does he have the units to clean this up? It doesn't seem like he does.
Nah, as the Protoss is down 40 supply, you have no answer against Hydralisk. That's pretty much it, as GG is called, and Sen, perhaps a little surprisingly, takes game number 1 after a magnificent hold early on, being gasless against the 4-gate scenario, a very standard common scenario in this day and age of PvZ. It looked like things were going well for ShoWTimE, and suddenly Sen, with, what was it, like 40 slow Zerglings? Being able to take out the Zealots.
It was, yeah, I think it's more that he just identified the build. From our perspective, as Protoss players especially, we saw that and we were like, hey, this looks really good for ShoWTimE. Like, Zealots in that chokehold at the 3rd base, there's no creep there, Queens are going to take a while. It seemed like he was in really good shape.
Did he go too far south? Was that a mistake by ShoWTimE? Because it does feel like the Queens put out a lot of damage on the Zealots.
I feel like you don't peel up as many Zealots as he did. He basically took his whole army and then chased 1 Queen, where if he took, you know, just the Mothership Core, 1 Zealot, he could have cleaned up that Queen. He doesn't have to risk that much. And the whole time he brought, you know, he took so much HP off of this hatchery and then he doesn't actually end up killing it. It's just a lot of wasted resources.
Yep, like normally this is a great scenario. This is just such a good scenario. It's a bunch of slow Zerglings, only 1 Queen here. Like he's gonna have almost 10 Zealots. This Time Warp was useless.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Time Warp in this situation doesn't do much. Right here, this is fine. Just go back to the hatchery. Like, go back to the hatchery. You don't need to commit here.
Yep, 1 or 2 Zealots will take a lot of damage here, and then suddenly all these slow links. Very good job by Sen, keeping those Zerglings alive, sending them north. But these Zealots, they should have been standing between the hatchery and the Vespian Geyser, or between the mineral patches. And like now it's okay, but the Zealots already took so many free hits that normally they would have never taken.
I completely agree. I think ShoWTimE would have done a much better job if he just, you know what you do, you attack on the hatchery and then you just click hold position. You don't have to think about anything. If the Zerglings want to engage, you're always trading well. If they don't, you're always doing damage.
Yep, so ShoWTimE has his work cut out for him, as in game number 2 we're gonna move on to Coda. Of course, we're all very familiar with Coda. Without a doubt, the most popular map in the current map pool when it comes to the pro gamers. You know, as long as you're not a gimmicky player, you do kind of like Coda. And we see it in pretty much, well, not every series, but we see it in the majority
Like
of the
90%,
series.
yeah.
It's the new overgrowth, and there's nothing wrong with it, because at least we got rid of Echo, because Echo and Coda were so similar.
Yes.
In the right bottom side of Coda, map number 2 of day 3, hashtag WCS via Twitter. It is Sen, spawning in the right bottom side. Our Taiwanese Zerg.
He looks upset, like he just lost that game.
He's like, wow, I made it to America again. His 8th appearance in Premier League.
It's crazy.
Very impressive. And on the left top side, we're looking at the main base of our German Protoss. It is, of course, ShoWTimE. Not the only German in this group, as we are going to see Hero Marine in action next as well. That could be a very cool potential clash between 2 former EPS champions.
It's all about those EPS championships, huh?
You know it.
That is truly how we measure players these days.
Yeah, I know. Like,
no one can quite live up to Hasuops, though, I feel, especially from that German scene.
no, people don't know this, but the main reason why MVP retired is because he offered all his GSL trophies for an EPS trophy of Hasuops, and Hasuops said no.
And that's just, it's crushing. That is an accomplishment I'll never have, and I feel like my career was never fulfilled until I got that EPS championship, and quite frankly, I'm quite depressed about it.
Gotta apply for that German citizenship, mate.
Yeah.
And then take
It's
it out
always
against
worth
ShoWTimE, Hero Marine, Hanfi, Lambo. I think Hawk with a little bit of practice.
Maybe. Quite a lot of bit of practice, let's be honest here. At the same time, both players here are respecting each other a lot. ShoWTimE going for this gateway at the natural. We're seeing that more and more often. We saw that yesterday and the day before, actually, as well. Is that more the European style? I feel like whenever you pylon at the natural, generally speaking, it's either Nexus first or it's a Forge, not gateway.
I know, I'm with you as well. I mentioned this during Home Circuit Cup, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and then all the European Protoss just looked at me and they're
I
like,
love this.
no, this is very standard.
I love this. I do this all the time. You send a quick probe, you get that scout, you see hatchery first. Just throw down a fake pylon, make him pull drones. It's going to end up only costing him 25 minerals, and look how much time was wasted on these drones. They're even chasing the probe. It looks like Sen's AI right now for how long he did chase that probe with workers, but all in all, well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely worth it. 25 minerals for 6-7 drones not mining, which represent half of your economy in this phase in the game, because you're only working with 14 or 15 workers.
For that long.
Yep. That's absolutely a good investment for ShoWTimE. He's going to be happy with this. ShoWTimE would love to keep this probe around for as long as possible, because he wants to know again, are we going to see any extractors go down, or is it going to be another gasless opening for Sen?
Yeah, it seems like Sen favors these gasless openings quite a bit. At the same time, ShoWTimE from the last game, he didn't look too shaken. We saw the camera shot at the end. He was listening to music, bobbing a little bit. And seeing that as a player, it shows that he's relaxed. He's not too worried. Actually, when we saw Sen's face, it looked like he lost. He looked very upset.
I mean,
he looked like one of those Chinese gangsters, just kind of like, what's up?
Sen pretty much always looks like this. I remember a long time ago, he made it to California for a show match against Todd. And he didn't smile once in all 3 days. He was just sleeping. While Todd was grinding his butt off all day long. He was playing ladder games, Sen 4-1.
Wow.
Like, Sen didn't do anything other than play on his Game Boy that I think he brought along. And everyone's like, Sen, don't you want to practice, warm up? He's like, no, I'm good. And Todd is like, he's working really hard. Sen definitely has the talent. Another interesting fact between these two players is that Sen has won exactly $100,000 more prize when it comes to his career prize earnings than ShoWTimE.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that surprising. ShoWTimE's fairly new. Sen's been around since Brood War. He was an absolute beast in Brood War. He's like quite a bit older than ShoWTimE. I mean, it's ShoWTimE. You kind of put that goal there, I guess. You say, hopefully by time I'm Sen's age, I'll have that much money or more. We all aim for MC.
I completely agree with you, though, that whenever you see the name ShoWTimE, you always still think like, that's a newer generation Protoss. But did you know that he actually made it into WCS Premier League in 2013 already for the first time? Yeah, that feels weird, right?
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
No, because you're like, ShoWTimE is new generation Protoss. He came around maybe towards the end of like 2014.
Yeah.
But no, he made it into Premier League once in 2013 and then once in 2014 as well. And of course, 2015 Season 1, that was finally his breakthrough.
Yeah, and this is kind of a defining moment, I feel, in his career. It's the end of Season 3. He still holds, a little bit hope to see how far he could go. But as I said, that Season 1, he had a great performance. But a lot of people look at it and say, hey, he didn't really play that difficult of opponents. And then in Season 2, everybody expected him to win. He didn't really deliver. And now in Season 3, he's down 0-1 against Sen. And a group that seems not that hard, to be honest. It seems very manageable for either of these players.
Yeah, I mean, it has Jaedong, of course, and
Yes.
let's not underestimate Hero Marine either, a player that has been very well respected in the European scene for a while. We see Spore Crawlers go down everywhere, as the Oracle, of course, is in production, but Sen has scouted it with his Overlord. I've seen a couple of very cool builds of ShoWTimE. One build I definitely won't forget was his Season 1 build against Kane back then in WCS Premier League quarterfinals, where he went with the Phoenixes and +1 and charge lots. I think that's such a cool build. Love playing it myself as well. I think it's a very fun playstyle for Protoss. This time, however, it's going to be an Oracle opening. This Oracle, I don't think is going to be able to do a whole lot of damage, as Sen seems extremely well prepared. And I must say, so far, Sen has looked way better than in his previous two season appearances. Because back then, it almost felt like if you got Sen in your group, you're good. Because Sen was a beast, 2012, 2013. But after that, he's fallen off pretty hard. Statistics don't lie, 7 times Premier League, only 1 round of 16.
Yes.
But so far today,
He
Sen
looks
has
really
shown
solid.
up. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the biggest thing. He's not playing, anything too crazy. It's just super solid play. He's reacting to the Protoss as you should do, ZVP, and he's just, he's droning when he should. He's playing super safe. He sees that Oracle. He builds 3 spores. He's not even producing units. He's been droning all day here.
I couldn't agree
he
more.
can get away with it.
It's flawless so far. There isn't really anything that I could say like I wish
that was bad,
Sen would have done this or Sen would have done that. Like, no, I think everything that Sen has done so far makes a lot of sense. His layer was, by the way, very quick. It was before Zergling speed. It's definitely a very greedy build.
Yes.
But maybe he's just reading into ShoWTimE. He's like, well, you were aggro in game number 1. It didn't work out. You're probably going to switch it up for game number 2. Well, that was a correct call, Sen, because now he's going to have access to these Hydralisk extremely quick. The Oracle should have scouted that though, right? He saw the Hydralisk?
Yes, he did. And as soon as these sentries push out, he makes a small group of Zerglings, doesn't overcommit. Just 10, 12, force out these force fields, make sure that he knows he can't push across the map. He's doing everything exactly as he should, and he's going to have a good amount of units to try to bust this third base, and that's going to be his goal.
This is a scenario that we're very familiar with. I don't like this engagement with the Lynx. They won't kill a single sentry. Good force fields, of course, by ShoWTimE.
And not an overreaction.
No.
Just the 1 or 2, save that 1 sentry, you're good to go.
But this is a scenario we're very familiar with as well. Hydralisk are going to try to run over the Protoss that's trying to buy time and stabilize until he has a lot of Blink Stalkers and a lot of gateways. For a second, we saw Darkshine almost go down. But this is attacking, or this is hitting a little bit quicker than it normally hits.
Yeah, because he played so greedy. He saw that Oracle opening, he saw only 3 gateways, and he just said, you know what? I'm not going to make any units. I'm sure you're just, going to play a normal +2 Blink Stalker.
This is going to be difficult, man. I'm not sure if he should even try to defend on the low ground. I think it's better to split up your army and put it in 2 locations on the high ground and then rely on Photon Overcharge. Because right now, guys, what ShoWTimE needs is time. Look at the upgrade tab. Those are the things that matter, or the production tab, sorry Flo. +2 attack on the way and Blink halfway done. ShoWTimE needs those upgrades to finish. That's when he can truly start fighting. Up to that point, just buy time.
Yeah, he has great SimCity here. He's got the gateways in place, that 1 cannon. Of course, he has Photon Overcharge. He's going to have 2 of them by the time that first runs out. He just needs to make sure he doesn't take a horrible engagement. Don't be too greedy here. As a Protoss player, this is very dangerous. Force field so far is so good. But he's bleeding out a lot of energy and a lot of damage on these Stalkers.
He's playing with fire, and they looked good, but he still lost a lot of Stalkers as well. But overall, I think it's okay now. The second wave of force fields, I think, is very good. He's saving the majority of the sentries.
Which is very important.
Wow, I'm actually surprised how well this is going. He's down 30, so okay, now maybe it's not going all that well.
Yeah, it's getting a little rough. It's always rough when you're in this situation because you want to cut off as much as you can and you commit to something, and then all of a sudden a few Zerglings squeak in and you're just losing a lot of damage. Look at that loss. That's huge. 10 sentries at this point. It is really hard to hold here.
But we're looking at a Zerg with no evolution chambers. We're looking at a Zerg with 0/0 Hydra going up against Blink Stalker now. Maybe soon, if now we actually have Blink Stalkers at +2. If ShoWTimE defends one more time, the tables are turned and he's in a phenomenal position.
But he has literally no force fields. He's lost every sentry. It's going to be a very hard hold. He's going to have to micro his heart out. So far, so good. He kills all the Zerglings. This isn't a bad fight at all for him. He's got that time warp still. He throws it down. The Oracle bleeds out. And now he's just blinking.
The Oracle did a little bit of damage. It actually does very well against Hydras if it doesn't get focused down. But these Stalkers are doing surprisingly well against the Hydras because of the upgrades. Hydra's speed is not even ready yet. ShoWTimE has stabilized, and suddenly we're looking at a completely different game. As ShoWTimE right now has evened up the supply. Let's not forget he was down like 30, 40. He's going to start +3 before we have our first evolution chamber on the map. Can I please always play PvZ like this, Chris?
Yes, and now Sen is in such an awkward position. What do you do here? You have no upgrades, you have no backup plan, you have no Hive, no Muta switch. You're literally on only Hydralisk, only Zerglings, and no upgrades.
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea. Fungal Growth maybe is an option, but the thing is, like, a single Evolution Chamber is not going to cut it either. By the time he has +1, ShoWTimE is going to have +3.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, you just have to reshove and hope for the best, or maybe switch it up to some kind of tech, Vipers, Infestors, something, but you're too far behind in the upgrade game, I feel, at this point.
Yeah. I'm actually not sure. The only thing you can hope for is that ShoWTimE takes a horrible fight up a ramp where you spread out all your Hydralisk and you
Get
just
like
somehow...
a surround.
Yeah. The dream engagement,
Yeah,
you know,
and then
maybe
even then you're fighting against Force Fields, Time Warp, Recall, and just blinking away, to be honest.
Yep. I don't mind it at all that ShoWTimE is taking his time here. He probably clicked on those Hydras, he looked at it, he's like, well, 0-0. And of course, he's not crazy. He's played a lot of games like this, opening up with the sentries, going into Blink. He's played a lot against these big Hydra pushes. He knows that Zergs are very, very committed to it, and they want to break that turret base. They want to at least take out a Forge or a Cybercore and a bunch of sentries, and only then they are willing to transition. But Sen definitely didn't get what he was looking for, and ShoWTimE knows this, so he's like, well, there's no need for me to step on creep or do anything silly. I'm just going to position myself very well and enjoy this upgrade advantage that I'm currently having.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about the style that ShoWTimE is playing. He has great feel for the game. If you realize, he lost all 10 sentries. He had no hallucinations. He has no robo, no observers. He hasn't been scouting at all for the last few minutes, but he's so comfortable because he just knows where he is in the game. He knows that as soon as he turned the tables, he was in great position. All he has to do is micro, macro, and he's fine.
Like, what I do like, and I do think that just Stalkers can cut it, but we do see Storm that is on the way, and I think that's smart. Because Hydras are slightly smaller than Stalkers, so most of the time, more Hydras will shoot at Stalkers than Stalkers are able to shoot at Hydras. And you don't really want to put yourself in a position where, let's say, only 60% of your Stalkers are shooting at once, while pretty much every single Hydra is firing. Because then, even though when you have Blink, Guardian Shield, and better upgrades, things can still get a little dicey. So I really enjoy the fact that ShoWTimE is going up to Storm now. You know, rather safe than sorry. And this army with Storm would never die. This is a great look at the amount of Hydra list. This is
an insane amount of Hydra.
This is pretty much the best position he can hope for. Also, right before Storm is going to finish up. So I do like this move by Sen. It's everything or nothing anyway, you know. He was...
Storm's 6 seconds out. He's just trying to buy time. +3 photon overcharge. All these buildings taking so much damage. And ShoWTime's unit said, you know what? I'll lose a few probes if I win this battle. And those Storms are going to be killer. The Hydras are so committed here. They cannot escape. He's just going to have to trade out here. But trading out against Storm...
This is the moment where we're going to see a forward Blink, because the Protoss knows that he is going to absolutely demolish this Hydra force. Sen is going to stick in the game for now, because he did take out 13, 14 workers. He has +2 missile attacks on the way, but these +3 Blink Stalkers, I think now the waiting game is over for ShoWTimE. He knows that he just killed a ridiculous amount of Hydras, and it's time to make something happen with those units that he has. Do something about that fort base of Sen. Don't let him get too rich. That's a very
confident.
Yeah.
That is a super confident Blink, and he knows it's over. He has to just commit to this push. The supplies, fairly even actually. If he had drones to pull at that 4th base, this would actually be a close hold, but realistically, if ShoWTimE commits here and he micros, he should be fine. Can Sen scare him off here?
Well, maybe. I mean, for us it's very easy because we've got access to all the numbers.
We can see what's happening here, but at the same time...
You don't want to be that guy that makes another Blink forward and then suddenly you get surrounded by Zerglings and Hydras, and if ShoWTimE ends up losing all these Stalkers, then of course he is the one that's in a world of trouble.
Yeah, and it looks like ShoWTimE's just going to play it safe. He has Storm, he has High Templars. Tech-wise, he has nothing to worry about. And look at these Storms! This is just so rough for Sen to take an engagement like this. He's always going to trade very poorly. These Storms coming down, he's bleeding out Hydras left and right, and another confident Blink, and Sen's going to tap out.
Yeah, it looked a little different on creep, but off creep there was absolutely no way that ShoWTimE was going to give away this upgrade advantage. As our German Protoss evens up the series. Solid game by him, man, because that was not an easy hold at all at first. He played against a Zerg who went 3 hatch, you know, pretty much gasless, then went up to the layer before Zergling speed and just tried to get those Hydras out as quick as possible. And the Oracle didn't really do a whole lot of economic damage, yet ShoWTimE was able to defend. I think that's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, and we're seeing the battle of the bottles right now. We got one tiny one for Sen, one big one for ShoWTimE. ShoWTimE trying to show his dominance.
You think of everything, Chris.
Yes, I do. And these are the defining moments in the game, really. He does push up here, but he's up so much supply, and these are the risky force fields that you choose off a little bit too much. It looks okay, looks like he's in good position, but as you can see, these Zerglings just tank so many shots from the Stalkers, and at the same time, this little nook at the bottom left, there are a few more Hydras that help out, and all of a sudden it's just too much.
Yeah, those 2 force fields helped out a lot, because that made the difference between 5 Hydras shooting from the lone ground or only 2. And it looked like it was going to be very rough at a certain point for ShoWTimE, but then in the end he still managed to keep the sentries alive. As you can see him sending them to the north side. This is a moment where I was starting to get a little bit scary, but then he wipes in a few more units soon. And of course, Fulton Overcharge did some heroic work there, to say the least.
Yeah, and this one photon cannon helps so much in this battle. It actually does a lot of work. This Oracle even getting in the mix. This was a tough time. If we look at the supply at the bottom, he's up 30. If Sen breaks him here, he has no fallback plan. He has no sentries. He has no energy. But it's kind of a sliding scale, because once you take this engagement as a Zerg player, Hydra's off creep, no movement speed upgrade even, you're committed.
Yeah, and right now that was the moment where +2 was done, Blink was done, and there's pretty much no way anymore. But of course, this is WCS Premier League round of 32. You're not just going to leave after losing a battle. And Sen almost turned it around. Imagine if ShoWTimE would have got super eager and stepped further on creep. Maybe he could have lost a bunch of Stalkers. But ShoWTimE too experienced for that by now. So he evened up the series, and we're going to hop in game number 3, which will be played on Bridgehead, one of my favorite maps at the moment.
Mixed feelings.
I love it, mate.
This is where I lost against Kane in Challenger, 3-2.
Okay, so it's sensitive.
Yeah,
I
got feelings.
We can avoid talking about the map. Let's talk about the players instead. As over here on the left side of Bridgehead, we're looking at the main base of ShoWTimE, former EPS champion and a semi-finalist of WCS Premier League, going up against the veteran, the super experienced Taiwanese Zerg. It is Sen. He's been around for so long. Once upon a time got jinxed by Day 9. Day 9 said, I hope he always gets 4th place.
Yep, and then it was over.
And then he went on to finish 4th in like 5 tournaments in a row. And Day 9
curse.
And Day 9 felt really bad about it. He's like, I actually really like Sen.
Yeah. I just remember that NASL photo where he's like running through the red carpet like Dragon Ball Z or something with his hands behind his back, like makes him more aerodynamic or something.
Yeah, and NASL Season 2. I think he finished 4th place there as well.
The curse is strong.
He finished 4th place, I believe, in BWC in China as well, 2012.
4th place isn't bad.
No,
if I could place 4th place in WCS, I'd be pretty happy.
I know, I think it would be a dream for many people. I think right now, in this day and age, it would almost be a dream for Sen, you know, because Sen has been struggling a little bit with his results over the last year and a half.
This is really unusual. This hatchery is, it's like, this map is so known. As you can see from the scouting pattern,
this is really cool, though.
Yes, ShoWTimE went to the top of his rocks to scout for the proxy hatchery. Now he scouts the second natural, I guess.
Yeah.
And now he's going to go immediately to the natural. He's not going to see a hatchery there, and he's immediately going to be like, what the heck is going on? There's a proxy hatchery somewhere, but where is it?
No, he's like, I'm going to need a forge. I'm going to need to drop a cannon near my destructible rocks because I know what's going on. Like, ShoWTimE right now thinks I know what's going on.
But he scouted there. He didn't see anything.
Yeah, but maybe he just thinks it's going to be a little bit later than it normally is. I know you're right.
Yeah, well, right now he's just super confused.
Yeah,
he's like,
of course.
Then that's the next. We see this a lot too in Europe, where they take that other base, but no one takes the base that Sen's
I've indeed never seen
this.
No, I've never seen a Zerg take their natural.
Look, he's completely confused.
Yeah, he's going to check the rocks again.
Wow, this is very strange. ShoWTimE's not overreacting though. At the same time, he's not. Usually, when you have this situation, you kind of overreact as a player. You're like, oh my gosh, something crazy's happening. I just want to throw down stuff that makes me not die in the next 2 minutes. But
if this was me, Chris, I would be like red alert. I would pause my Spotify. I would throw up a fort and make cannons everywhere. I know something is coming, and I'll be ready.
Yeah.
Full wall off. You know, lock yourself in your main base.
He's even scouting at his natural, throwing up a pylon, getting ready to build that wall at the rocks because he's really unsure.
If ShoWTimE wins this and if he makes it out of this group,
look, he's scouting literally every base but the one where the hatchery is.
So he's not the only one who's never seen this before, Chris.
Yes.
It's not just us. But okay, besides the fact that this is very unusual, how good do we think this is?
I have no idea what the plan is, you know? He obviously put the hatchery there for some reason besides just messing with ShoWTimE. But what is it? Is it like a quick layer push with creep? I don't know.
I mean, you could say if he decides to max out on roaches, he's going to have slightly quicker reinforcements than when the
Just
roaches...
because the creep path, I guess?
Yeah, and the roaches wouldn't come all the way from the back of his own natural, but it seems...
Yeah, like over the years, we've seen some really interesting builds where you'll specifically build Zerglings from your main base, and then you'll build roaches from the proxy hatchery because they're going to get there that much quicker. But with the creep and how this is going to work out, it just...
I would love to hear...
I don't get it.
No, I would absolutely love to hear what ShoWTimE has to say about this game. If he makes it out of this group,
Like,
he's a long way off, but...
He's re-scouting.
Yeah.
And now he's going to figure... But is it going to get there?
So one of the main reasons why, and people at home may think like, hey, if this is like so, you know, confusing, why don't more Zerg players do it? It's because you actually lose a lot of mining time. You rally a lot of drones from your main base towards your natural, but if you see how far away the natural is from the main, you know, those drones...
Look at those drones.
Yeah.
Look how far they had to go.
So every single time a drone pops, you're wasting 4, 5, 6 additional seconds before it actually starts mining, and that really does hurt your economy a lot in the long haul.
And in general, especially as a Zerg player, you want to have your bases closer together. You want to be able to, you know, send queens if you need to defend a War Prism, an Oracle, or a gateway push. You want your creep to be connected so your units reinforce. All these reasons, you generally want your bases closer together, and that is literally like the 4th farthest base you could take as a natural.
Yeah. It's pretty damn unique, but you said it very well. ShoWTimE was absolutely not overreacting. He didn't do anything that he normally wouldn't do, just spend his chrono boost in a very regular way. Of course, he was scouting actively, but just with a single probe. It's not like he pulled off another probe. There was no red alert, there was no overreaction. So without anything truly happening in this game, I kind of like ShoWTimE's position so far.
I love ShoWTimE's position, and he's done such a great job of scouting. That probe finally dying. That's the original probe. It saw the layer, it saw the gases, it scouted both hatcheries going up, and now it just seems like he's in a commanding position. Nothing too crazy has happened, but at the same time, Sen did take a slight economical loss from doing that proxy hatchery, and what has it accomplished?
Yeah, as far as I can see, absolutely nothing. And I think ShoWTimE is quite pleased with this. He's probably not going to do anything too wild. Will most likely just go up to 3 bases and play it out kind of the same way as he tried to play out Coda. Of course, Iron Fortress was a unique map. It's very hard to go up to 3 bases on Iron Fortress, and it had a different build order opening as well, with the 4-gate pressure rather than the regular 3-gate, where he may move out eventually, but it's a lot less committed than the 4-gate Zealot opening.
Yeah, I feel like ShoWTimE on that first map was just like, no gas, I guess I'll just, you know, try this. And then after losing that game, he's like, you know what, I'm the better player. I feel like I'm confident. I'm just going to play normal macro. And obviously that suited him in the last match.
We see a robotics facility a lot quicker than we see most Protoss players build a robotics facility on this map. Do you think he's worried about a road shop or something?
Yeah, I think it's just because the extra weirdness in this particular game where he saw that forward hatchery, maybe he's thinking it's going to be like some kind of weird roach push. And he's just saying, you know what? If nothing crazy happens at this point, I'm in pretty good shape. So he's just kind of cutting, you know, the possibilities out.
Would you apply some old school PvZ logic over here, and you could say like maybe drop a robotics bay and try to get a Colossus as well?
That is something we've been seeing more and more lately. I don't think ShoWTimE's the type of player to do that, but I wouldn't mind it. I think Colossus in this position would do really well, but then again, we see this quick hive.
Wow, yeah, the hive is very quick.
So if he did go Colossus, you'd basically have 1 or 2 Colossus out by Time Vipers.
Yeah, maybe it would actually be better to just ignore that and try to go up to Storm as quick as possible. I'm very surprised by this very quick hive. I think as soon as ShoWTimE is going to see this hive timing, he's like, alright, that's it, that's my cue. I will not make Colossus if I even ever thought about it.
And then anytime you're going to have High Templars versus Vipers, it's a pretty good exchange for the Protoss for the most part. And we're going to see the map a little bit here. He's going to start breaking down these rocks, but ShoWTimE's already prepared for it. He has 3 gateways up. He finishes that wall, and he has a good amount of gateways. 3 here, 3 at his 3rd base, and even more in his main base. He's just going to warp in units, throw down a cannon, and he always has his Mothership Port of Photon overcharge.
Yeah, he's working on 8 gateways. He has to kind of react to this now a little bit, though. Just a single Photon overcharge wouldn't hurt to keep those Zerglings alive.
I don't feel like you need to send all of your sentries.
No, that's exactly what Sen probably wants him to do. This is going to get tricky. This is once again where this unique design of Bridgehead really comes into play. As a Protoss, you have to worry about those units trying to bust through your natural. At the same time, you have to worry about that 3rd base. It's on the south side of your main that is perhaps a tiny little bit exposed. And you know, it's very important that you don't build a horrible Sim City on this map. Otherwise, your units are going to have a very hard time making their way over from north to south.
And both players kind of doing this really well. Zerg has that Overseer on the cliff, Protoss has that Observer, and they're just spotting each other out. They're just playing a little tug-of-war position here. I would love to see either player snipe that vision. Right now, if you could kill that Observer,
Yeah,
Protoss is going to be caught out, but at the same time,
Sen is close.
is he going to kill it? It doesn't look like he's actually going to react, and that's really unfortunate for Sen, because as long as he knows where that Zerg army is, he's never really going to be in trouble.
And I mean, Storm is on the way again, and as soon as we have Storm against all these Hydras, it's a little less effective against Roaches. It still does damage, but not
Tickles.
as...
Tickles the Roaches. Let's just be real.
Nah, I mean, it's slightly more... It's an aggressive tickle.
Okay. We'll settle on that for
A
now.
tickle and a sting in between.
Yeah.
A tickle with long nails.
Pinch, like a pinch.
Yeah,
too.
okay.
Alright.
So it is not as disastrous as it was on Coda, but Storm is still going to be a game changer in that way. And once again, the upgrades are heavily in favor of ShoWTimE with +3 on the way, while +2 missile attacks has just started. Sen needs to make some plays happen real soon. He has Vipers. A Blinding Cloud could be nice. Oh, those are
beautiful.
nasty force fields.
Beautiful force fields. He's going to cut out a chunk of this army. It's not such a big deal. You know, Sen's still going to be able to max out, but he basically is getting Vipers when Storm's already done.
Yep. I mean, Blinding Cloud would be awesome. Abducting an Immortal or two, that would be great as well. Because we are currently looking at 4 Immortals already. So he was kind of reading this as Mass Roach at first. Storm could go down as the Blinding Cloud goes down as well. Storm is connecting with a bunch of units, not doing overwhelming amounts of damage though. These two Storms, however, are a lot better as the Hydras are all very low on HP now. Great force, man, those were beautiful. You saw how he dropped those force fields.
Yes.
Picasso force fields.
Yeah, and he throws down this Blinding Cloud, but realistically he just doesn't have the army anymore. He's kind of overusing the force field energy here, but it's, you know what, it's saying, this is over. You lost that battle hard, and he's just going to blink in, pick off a few more units, and Sen's in a lot of trouble here. Supply? 152, but realistically, look at, where's his army? He has a few Roaches here, but look how many Immortals he has alone.
ShoWTimE drops force fields like I almost see no other Zerg, Protoss does it. It's like they fall out of the sky, all synchronized. It's like bum, 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 bum. It's so nice. Because normally you kind of see them scattered all over the place. But he does it really well. It's all synchronized. It's beautiful. Just put a little bit of classical music on the top of it, and you're watching Protoss art.
Yeah. And he's done such a great job of painting that picture this game. He's just gonna send out his stalkers, he cleans up the creep, and all of a sudden you're 3 base first, 4 base Zerg, but realistically he's only up 6 workers. You got great upgrades. You're +3, getting +1 armor. Zerg's just getting +2 soon. And you're High Templar versus Viper. That's always a battle that Protoss loves to take. And there's no realistic hard tech from Sen coming out, you know? There's no Brood Lords, there's no Ultralisk. He's gonna get the Mothership Core. That's a small victory.
Yep.
He'll take it for sure. And now Protoss is gonna always be a bigger threat with these Storms. And these Storms are doing such great damage. Second one whiffs a little bit, doesn't connect as much, but he's got force fields, Immortals, he's just tearing through the Zerg army.
Yeah, ShoWTimE just has to make sure that he won't be too trigger happy, that he doesn't drop all of his Storms at once. Blinding Clouds are good, double Abduct going down as well. So 2 of those expensive Immortals get picked off. 1 more Immortals in the back of ShoWTimE's army.
And there's no
Sen
Storm.
is still maxed out.
And there's no Storm. Great Abducts. He's actually using these Vipers surprisingly well. Against so many Storms,
Maybe ShoWTimE should have dropped a couple feedbacks.
Yes, for sure. I feel like the Vipers are a lot more costly for the Zerg player than Protoss. Protoss, you can just warp in the High Templar. Zerg, you gotta build them, you gotta suck out that energy, you gotta fly them across the map. He's the defending player. As long as you can defend, you'll be in good shape. And he needs to realize that and not be so greedy. You know, I'd love to see confidence in Protoss players, but the biggest thing is when you watch a VOD and then you see, oh, I wasted like 6 force fields there doing like a donut when I really didn't need to, or I stormed there where I should have feedback.
I really feel that Sen should take out the second pair of rocks as well. It's going to give
just
him
the
much...
force field threat alone, you need to take out that second rock.
Yep. And that wouldn't take very long at all. A couple
Great
of Zealots
orbits.
being wiped into the main base, and this is very frustrating, especially because Sen was maxed out for a while, so he really didn't have a whole lot of units at home. Look at that drone count, 13 drones going down already. And Sen, you know, he's going to send a couple of Roaches home now. The Hive is taking quite a bit of damage. I do think it's going to live. ShoWTimE is really committing to this.
Yeah, he really wants to get the Hive. He loses the Mothership again. This battle's going down. Looks like Sen's in better position. There's only 2 High Templars here. Does he go for the Storm? Does he go for the VX? Great Storms, but the army's still pretty strong here. He needs to pull these Immortals. Sen needs to get these Immortals out of the picture. These force fields gonna do good enough, and Sen's in trouble. He can't commit here.
And he lost the Hive as well at home. The final Zealots were able to take it out, so Sen just needs to F2 right now, grab all the units he possibly have, drop a couple of late Blinding Clouds, but ShoWTimE is not going to wait for reinforcements to arrive. He will just blink forward And these stalkers will take care of the Hydras, they will take care of the Roaches. And Sen, it really hurt so much that he didn't have all his units at home because he had to defend against that War Prism.
Yeah,
Or he didn't have all the units on the other side of the map.
Yeah, and losing Hive here is really tough. Whenever you have Hive tech, let's say he had a Greater Spire or he had an Ultralisk Cavern, those are still going to be up. It's not such a big deal, but once you lose that Hive, there's no Vipers.
No more Vipers indeed, has a little bit of energy. Is trying to get leached once again. It seems like we have a minor technical difficulty over here. It's just going to take a few seconds. Sen is still up in supply, so this game, you know, it's not 100% over, but ShoWTimE, you know, the ball is definitely in his corner. He has better upgrades, better units, better tech. There isn't really anything that's not in his favor.
Yeah, the real question is ShoWTimE going to be overly aggressive? You know, if he pushes in, he doesn't really have that many High Templars.
Yeah. He could be underestimating the army of Sen because he just crushed the army on the left side. Maybe we can actually talk about it a little bit later.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much.
Yeah, ShoWTimE could potentially take off his headset. Right now his headset is still on. As what is happening is that one of the observers is temporarily lagging out.
No, just throw her under the bus. There's only one observer. Her name is Flo. Feel free to tweet at her and blame her for this.
Yeah, I believe we have lost power. We could potentially maybe swap to my screen, or I don't know. I think that could be an option as well if it gets too complicated, because I'm in the game as well.
That Roddy observing, and we're just going to go in a small replay here. This is actually a great engagement by Sen. Potentially, this should all be Protoss all day, but he just does a great job of pulling these Immortals, dodging as many storms. He's constantly bleeding units out at the beginning of the battle, but now that the energy is gone for the Protoss player, this Blinding Cloud confuses the units. He gets these two great pulls. That Storm, honestly, only hitting a few units, and now, what is the options for Protoss? There's no Storm, there's no energy, he can't even feed back, and he's just going to pick off unit after unit on the retreat. That's where we see Sen still maxed out, ShoWTimE only at 142 supply. All in all, this game's still very close, and these warp-ins are what really did it for ShoWTimE, did the damage across the map as he traded out negatively back at home.
Yep, and of course eventually he was able to take out that Hive, which was a massive pick-off, but once again, this game is not 100% over yet. I actually have no vision of the players now, so I don't want to talk too much about the game. What we can talk about, we can speculate a little bit about our upcoming match between Hero Marine and Jaedong. I think that's a match that a lot of people are very excited for, and so am I.
Yeah. It's a match because I was just with Jaedong at Gfinity actually in London, and he actually didn't even make it out of groups there, which is very surprising. Jaedong is a player that didn't play in Season 1. He just came to America. He had to get that visa. He's invested into WCS. He needs to make it to BlizzCon. In my eyes, and I'm sure in his eyes as well, if he doesn't make it to BlizzCon, all in all this year, pretty big disappointment. You know, you don't want to add that pressure to a player, but if I'm a Korean, I'm committing to coming over. You know, especially with the increased amount of leagues in Korea, you're expecting to be Paul. You're expecting to be Hydra, especially a player that is of Jaedong's caliber. You know, he's a fan favorite. He's been in the scene for a long time. We know he has the talent. You know, you set that bar pretty high. You say, you know, I need to make it to BlizzCon. And for him to make it to BlizzCon, not only does he have to make it in this group, he has to go very, very, very deep in this season. There's a few other tournaments. We talked about maybe MSI. We talked about Stockholm. He does have options, but WCS, that's where the points are.
Yep, there's a lot of points up for grabs if Jaedong goes all the way, and that's pretty much what he has to do if you want to see him make an appearance at BlizzCon. Jaedong is looking at a pretty much must top 2 finish this season. Winning, that would be fantastic for Jaedong. Then he's going to give himself a nice, comfortable position, a little bit of a cushion as well.
Yeah, get some points here and there in these other tournaments.
Exactly, and then he's going to be fine. Then he will still make it to top 16 at the end of the year. Let's not forget, you know, Jaedong is not just the big Brood War name. He was the runner-up of BlizzCon in 2013.
Yep.
And even in 2014, he made it to the final 16 as well. And he played one hell of a series against Balmer back then. Balmer that was an extremely hot player towards the end of 2014.
Yes.
People, you know, people come and go in StarCraft, and you know, form goes up and down. But Balmer towards the end of 2014 was one of the absolute scariest players in the world, taking out Codas, you know, semi-finalists, finalists left and right. He was on an absolute roll. And Jaedong pushed him to 5 games, but he was still eliminated in the round of 16. And for a player like Jaedong, it doesn't matter who he faces. He will always be devastated if he loses.
Yeah, that is very true. And this is a group, to be honest, I would say Jaedong is a strong favorite. Maybe not as much as Hydra. You know, we saw Hydra and Paul, and you know, these are the guys that, you know, first or second, always in WCS. But Jaedong, you know, he needs to step it up now. If he didn't make it out of this group, it would be a huge disappointment. Not only would that close out his hopes for BlizzCon, but all in all, for just his year of StarCraft II, it would just be, you know, you came over here, you were here for 2 seasons, and you didn't do what you needed to do.
I do absolutely want to agree with you that I think this group is a lot scarier for Jaedong than the group yesterday was for Hydra. Hydra is just almost on another level now.
Yeah.
And the players that Hydra was facing, they were all very good in their own respective matter, but pretty even across the board. And also not players that, you know, have huge momentum switches where one day they bring their A+ game and the other day it's just they kind of play at an average level, which you know is not as high as Hydra, but
it's not scary.
No, but players like ShoWTimE and Hero Marine,
sometimes
they can turn it up. They can really turn it up, and on some
even
days,
Sen, it's you know, sometimes Sen comes in and like today he seems very solid, and then you know last season he was like, yeah, I would love to have Sen in my group, but it's just it's a scare factor for Jaedong right now. Like I said, he's still a great player, obviously, and he is the favorite in this group, but he needs to make it out of this group. It isn't a question for him.
Yep, we are going to see Jaedong in action after this first series of the day is done. We're almost good to go, guys. We apologize for the small inconvenience, but it won't take much longer. Within 30-40 seconds, we can continue this game that has been...
And a very close game.
Yep, a very close game indeed, because I have the feeling, as we can talk about it now, as both players are wearing their noise-cancelling headsets again, that ShoWTimE may be misreading this game a little bit. Yes, he just crushed those units on the left side.
And he got the hive.
Yeah, but Sen had so many units at home.
And that's the thing. Whenever you do economical or structural damage, it doesn't come into play until a few minutes later. And does ShoWTimE recognize that? This pause, you know, this technical difficulty can actually play in his favor a little bit. He has time to think, but so does Sen. Sen, I think, has maybe 2 or 3 Vipers left, and ShoWTimE, I don't think he has High Templars. So, like you said, if he takes a bad engagement, you know, if he gets on creep, because all these battles thus far, they've been across the map.
A forward blink into Blinding Cloud, like something like that is devastating. That's pretty much what Sen needs to bring game number 3 home, as we are very close to resuming the final moments, potentially, of Bridgehead. Because Sen, you know, ShoWTimE has a lot of options. Sen doesn't really have a whole lot of options. For Sen, it's like praying. Please attack into me, please lose everything, let me counter and win the game.
He's on the clock, because he doesn't have that hive.
No, he doesn't have the hive, and you pointed it out very well. No Ultralisk Cavern, no massive upgrades, and no Great Aspire. So, you know, there's only so long you can work with Roach Hydra and the 2 Vipers that now maybe still be alive, but soon could potentially be dead.
Yeah, if ShoWTimE walks home, he warps in 6 High Templars.
Yeah,
you're not scared. What are you scared of? You're going to be going up against Roach Hydra or Zerglings all day. There is literally no other options. He has a limited amount of Vipers. He's going to be on a clock for a few minutes if he even chooses to go for a hive. Most likely, Sen's going to push. But does ShoWTimE recognize that? Does he have the calm, cool, collected mind to say, you know what? I'm going to do the conservative move. I'm just going to pull back home, and I got this game.
Yeah, because the point where we paused, ShoWTimE was actually about to be the aggressor. Like, he was walking across the map, and he was stepping on creep. And for ShoWTimE right now, there is absolutely no reason to do that. Time is on the clock for Sen, not for ShoWTimE. ShoWTimE has all the time in the world. He could potentially give Sen 3 minutes, and then Sen still won't be where he really wants to be.
Yeah, and this is just a tough map for Protoss in general. That 4th base being so far the bottom left, does ShoWTimE really want to go that much longer?
You feel it's a very tough map for Protoss?
The back rocks, everything having multiple positions, even that 4th base being, you know, another possible attack path to throw Zerg. There's just a lot of chokes, you know. In general, when you think of chokes, you think, okay, it's of course going to favor Protoss, but we saw ShoWTimE try to push up, and all of a sudden he had his Zealots behind his Stalkers. It's all about positioning, and ShoWTimE as a player, I don't think he's that great at positioning. You know, strategically, a great player, build order-wise, feel for the game, yes, but position-wise and in micro, I wouldn't say it's his strong suit.
Okay, Coda, I was pretty impressed with his defensive positioning a couple times.
It was okay, but then we saw him trade out like all of his sentries, literally.
All right, we are good to go. Once more, we apologize for the inconvenience, but we are ready to pretty much hop in to the first series of WCS, the Season 3. Day 3, of course. Let us know what you think about the games. Hashtag WCS via Twitter, as we want to hear from you. And this is that moment. ShoWTimE, of course, just to refresh the memory, has just crushed those units on the left side of the map, has killed the hive, steps on creep over here, loses his stalker, and he's like, whoa, you had a few more units there than I expected. I don't think I should be going there. And ShoWTimE is doing the right thing right now. He was already transferring all these workers.
Yes.
Go up to 4 bases, take your sweet time. This would actually be a moment where he could maybe drop a Robo Bay, because if he kills these Vipers, they will never come back.
Yeah, and Colossus are just consistent damage. And it seems like no matter what, because of those workers going to that 4th base, ShoWTimE was always just going to play defensive.
Yeah.
He pokes out with the Stalkers, as we saw before.
And that's safe.
Yeah, and that's just like, I want to feel where that Zerg is. I want to see how big his army is, but I don't want to commit anything I can't bring back. Oh, and he gets the 2 Vipers. That's huge.
Yep.
These Storms going down, and Sen's almost all in here. He knows it, and his army just gets crushed. All of his tech is completely gone. The Confidence Blink comes out to get the Overseer. He only trades out a few Stalkers, and now you're just sitting on 2-1 Roach Hydras. No tech, no options. You have nothing in the form of tech. You have literally no mana units out, and at the same time, even bigger clock across the map. 8 Zealots in your mineral line. You're losing drones. Sen is feeling the pressure. He's going for this 4th base, but ShoWTimE's already in position and he's pushing him back.
And there are High Templars once again with plenty of Storm left. 14 more drones going down for Sen. Once again, the Hiveless Sen, that is. There's almost no saving this game anymore. He still has a lot of supply, but how on earth is he ever supposed to get a good engagement? He's going to try. He might be able to snipe the Nexus over here. ShoWTimE will go for forward blink.
He's even targeting it down, and you lose your army at this point. You can't reproduce it. He has a bank, but he's losing everything here. Force field storms raining down. Protoss completely controlling the side of the map. He loses the Nexus, but is it even that bad? He's only on 65 workers, and he still has this secondary Nexus.
Yep, he still has this base on the left bottom side of the map. Sen does have a layer now again. He's making 18 more roaches. He's trying to hurt the economy of ShoWTimE. He's doing a reasonable job with it. If he gets all these workers, then suddenly things get a little bit more tricky. That's 18 probes and a Nexus going down. Burrow being researched now. Do we have observers on the map? No, not a single observer, but there are 5 Immortals though. How on earth are you supposed to kill 5 Immortals?
A lot of Storm, there's a lot of possibility, there's a lot of damage on this Protoss army. He kills a lot of units, and now all of a sudden Sen that wants to hold him. He wants to defend, but ShoWTimE's not going to give him that time. These Storms, Zerg just walking through it. He decides to retreat and then come back and engage, and he's just taking so much damage. And at the same time, this Warp Prism is always a threat.
Extremely difficult for Sen to dodge those storms, of course, when he's off creep. On creep, it's a little bit easier to run out of them. We still have that base. That original expand is now the one that's morphing into the Hive. Those were some quality feedbacks by ShoWTimE, taking care of the only 2 Vipers that were on the map. The only 2 Vipers we will see for quite a while. I must say his force field and storm positioning have been awesome. Not yet. He may have Burrow, but he doesn't have tunneling pulse.
And these roaches are just going to pay that price. Losing a huge chunk of his army. As you can see from the army supply, it's 137 to 115. If Sen can hold on, he might have a chance, but at the same time, ShoWTimE knocking on his door, and he's going to push it in. Is that GG's?
GG is called. ShoWTimE will win the first series of the day. I was checking to see if Sen had Burrow, but he cancelled it in the end. I mean, Burrow against 5 Immortals, it's going to be hard to make that play work. I think a very entertaining, very explosive first series of the day here, day 3 of WCS.
Surprisingly close, I would say. I think most people would put ShoWTimE in a good lead here against Sen, but Sen showing up as the player we hope to see every time he comes to WCS, a player that can stand up to the top foreigners in the scene.
But if I'm ShoWTimE, I'm still feeling really good about this series. Game number 1, you played a little bit out of your regular style, you weren't overly aggressive.
Yeah.
On a map where it is, of course, hard to go up to 3 bases, but game number 1 was the one that, involved the least amount of execution and strategy and thinking. It was just a good old 4-gate into a 7-gate.
You're just kind of hoping you don't make units and I win that game, and when that doesn't happen, it's like, that's a freebie. Go ahead.
And then above all, in game number 2, Sen went for a very greedy, extremely aggressive Hydra push, so that was pretty hard to deal with the build, because that build is pretty much designed to kill the build of ShoWTimE, and he still did it, and that must feel really good. Like, if you still hold when you know your opponent has been cutting quite a few corners here and there, that feels really good.
Yeah, it lets you know that your mechanics in general are on point as micro. You just relied basically on Blink Stalkers for a good amount of that game, and he held on. And then Bridgehead being a scary map indeed, but he just holds on and keeps defending, and he was in good shape. Especially after scouting the weird hatchery positioning at the beginning of the game. He's like a little confused, but he just did what every player should do. He scouted really well, played consistent, defensive style, just took a 3rd Nexus off a lot of sentries, and hats off to ShoWTimE. He played a great game.
Yep. We were confused, and I'm wondering if the boys at the desk were ever confused about the first series of the day.
Thank you very much, Roddy. Yeah, in fact, good question. Were we thrown off? Obviously, everyone was kind of looking at that in the last map going, what's going on here? But The thing is, you're giving me a look like, oh, please. I knew
It
all
was
along.
obvious it would be a 2-1 ending on Bridgehead with double feedback Vipers leading into Hydralisk stepping back into Storm. Come on.
Of course. We all knew that was coming. That was exactly the ending moment. Let's talk from the very beginning, though. Let's rewind a little bit. In the beginning, didn't always look like it was going to be that way. I mean, even on map 2, it looked like Sen might have a chance of closing it out. Jeff, how did you view this match as a whole?
Really nice to see such patience out of a young Protoss player. I thought that a lot of times when you go Stalker Sentry, one of the kind of ultimate sins of that style is taking that one bad engagement. And certainly a few of those aggressive blinks were a little bit probably over ambitious, but for the most part, you would not say anything of ShoWTimE other than that he was patient. Like, he was actually kind of defensive about this style, which is something you don't see too terribly often. Getting up to that kind of, I don't want to call it new because obviously nothing of it is new, but meta-wise fairly new. Storm is a huge part of this composition, and he never really committed anything until he got Storm. And because Sen was just going for these really meaty, like Roach Hydra or just Hydra Ling styles in all 3 of the games, Storm was just very powerful. And of course, against Vipers, which is the only time we saw it in Game 3, you want that feedback. So just really nice to see such patience from ShoWTimE, and on a stage like this, it's one of the first things to go out the door, but he showed it in spades.
Yeah, I mean, Nate, what do you think ShoWTimE, there's some expectations starting to build around ShoWTimE. A lot of people are saying, well, I mean, you know, he made his way through here, and he's here again. A lot of people are expecting actually good things out of ShoWTimE. Some people are saying, yeah, ShoWTimE probably also guaranteed to get out of this group. How far do you think that goes, having seen that patience, especially Game 2, right? That battle where Sen's trying to push through. He's like, I just got to hold off for like 7 more seconds, everyone, and then Storm comes through, boom, he takes the lead.
Yeah, I think just based on the performance that he's put up throughout the entirety of the year, he comes into this group 2nd overall in WCS points, and as you said, moments like this, it's very easy to be caught off guard with just how fast, as weak as Hydras and Zerglings look with, like, you know, low amount of hit points, low damage, they can
Second
catch
overall
you
in WCS
so
points?
much in this group.
Oh, in the group.
Yeah, in the group.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
not second overall in the world yet. But quite, of course, could be building himself up for
This
next
is
year.
the fight that you guys were talking about. It was really, really good. Like,
Yeah.
so many Protoss are like, oh, God, I must defend the 3rd right now. He loses 4 gateways. Like, he lost a good number of probes.
And
like,
a lot of these blinks, too. Like, he
Yeah.
did this so much in this series. We're like, well, that's a really
well,
aggressive
that one's
blink.
good. That one was good. There's a
Yeah.
couple others where it was like,
There-
whoa, hold on.
There were a
He
few
was a little trigger
closer
happy.
than you think.
You heard the casters saying, too.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, don't get trigger happy now. 'cause you're
Yeah.
almost
I know.
close
It's
to
funny.
the
I'm
end.
like, he's got such good patience, but then we like cut to a scene of him being like, get in there right now, like just jumping forward. But
It shows the confidence that he
True.
has. That he's
Yeah.
like, okay, I know I have what I need to win this engagement. Sometimes a little bit overzealous, but he still made it happen.
I mean, the point is, and I think you just mentioned it, Nate, and of course our casters were saying in the game, regardless of whether statistically it was a good idea every time, it was that he knew when he had the lead, right? At least he recognized that. He was like, oh, I took the lead. Let's jump in. Maybe every time he was like, oh, sometimes he was like, oh, maybe I should back out a little bit again. But even that is, you know, credit to him if he was confident enough, but then still had the patience to be like, hold on, reel
Yeah.
myself in. That's really good to see in such a young player.
And one thing I want to touch on, too, before we go away, too, is on Bridgehead, decisive game, Sen went with that middle expansion, which was really tricky. And there's a lot of proxy hatches on that map. There is a lot of one-base all-ins. There's a lot of weird stuff that can happen. ShoWTimE's mis-scouted, if you will, this non-weird base, or the weird base, excuse me, and then did not overreact. And that's something that the casters touched on. I thought it was a really good point. And it's so subtle, but it's very nice. Because, again, in that situation, Sen's the kind of guy who's been doing it since Wings of Liberty, where it's like, yeah, I'm going to go one-base Nidus, or I'm proxying right outside your natural. But ShoWTimE, his build didn't even change. And because of that, he was in a position to be able to react to whatever was coming, which was nice.
Yeah, it was really good to see that from ShoWTimE. Of course, at the same time, Sen still has another chance, not out just yet. It's simply that ShoWTimE now has a lead in this group. But after this break, it's time to find out who's going to stand up to the next challenge for the next 2 players. It's going to be Jaedong versus Hiramine after this.